comes to data visualization in Python, eventually you're gonna have to learn Matplotlib because it's the most powerful library out there in terms of customization. But a lot of people are afraid of using Matplotlib, and rightfully so, because their documentation is absolute shite. It's true, it's so bad. That's why I've created this tutorial, to make learning Matplotlib more intuitive and interesting. Firstly, I'm going to show you that there are two different ways of plotting in Matplotlib, the easy way and the versatile way. I'll also show you why it's super important that we can distinguish between these two different ways of plotting when using tools like ChatGPT, for example. I'm going to focus a lot on the most common plots in a business setting. So talking here scatter plots, histograms, line plots, bar plots, but not only like the basic bar plots. We're going to go into grouped bar plots and stacked bar plots as well. Then an overarching theme of this tutorial is advanced customizations of plots, which is the competitive edge that Matplotlib has against the other data visualization libraries in Python. And as always, if you want to make the most out of this tutorial, make sure to code along with me. Pause the video, go back, make sure you fully understand everything in the video. Okay, see you there. Alright, here we are. Have a lot of things to do today. So we're going to start off by importing the libraries that we need. We're going to need NumPy and Pandas first off. And then, of course, we're going to need Matplotlib, import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Alright. And that's it. Then the data frame that we'll be using today is a data frame about YouTubers and their subscribers data and data related to their channels. You can find this data frame or the link to this data frame or CSV file on in the description below or on my GitHub. So we're also going to want to change the number of columns displayed here. So we're going to say pd option display max columns, set it to 30, and then we're going to look at the data frame. Yeah, so as I said, here we have a bunch of YouTubers and they've been ranked here according to the number of subscribers they have, and it is not completely up to date. I think, for example, Mr. Bates has a lot more followers nowadays than he had when this data was scraped. We have a category for the channel, number of videos uploaded here, and channel type, in which country the YouTuber resides. I have some other numerical data points here. Yes. So we're gonna move on here. I'm just gonna create a little slice of a data frame here with the top five most subscribed YouTubers in this data set. So we're gonna select the YouTuber column alongside with the subscribers. Okay, and then I'm gonna say n largest, and I'm gonna get it by the n largest columns subscribers, like that, and then I'm gonna say n5. That is also the default argument, by the way, so don't have to say that, but it's good to know. You can change it to be 10 or whatever. So let's just have a look at what we got here. So that's it. That's what we're going to visualize. And now I'm going to show you how to make this into a bar plot, and I'm going to show you two different ways of doing that. And there are two methods of doing it. First is the easiest way, and then I'm going to show you the most versatile way. So the easiest way, I don't really recommend you to only focus on this one. It's good to know that it exists. So here it goes. So you can just do this, plt.figure. I'm going to write a little headline actually also. So I'm going to say easiest way to plot with a plt figure object, like that. Boom. So plt.figure, run it like this. We can also say fig is equal to like this. So this is the figure object. Then we're going to create the plot, which is going to be a bar plot. So we say plt.bar, and then we pass the x and the height. So the height is basically going to be the y-axis. So x should be the YouTubers, right? The bars is the YouTubers. So we're going to say top 5, and then we'll say YouTuber, and then we're going to say height is equal to top 5 subscribers, like that. And let's do this for now. Okay, so this gives us the bar plot in a very, very simple form. We can also go in here and say fig size equal to 12.8, for example. Then we enlarge it, can make it a little smaller, say 8.5, something like that. So we can play around with this size here. Okay. Also, it's worth knowing that you don't need to pass x is equal to and height is equal to. If you just pass top 5 YouTuber and then this without saying x or height, it's gonna work as well. I'm just writing this out for you to be extra clear and pedagogical. So then we can play around with the color. You can here play with just like the first letter of all the basic colors like red, green, blue. You can also type them out like purple. I don't know if magenta is different. So it's a little different. You can type out any color here, but what you can do as well, which is really nice to know, is that you can put in hex code colors here. So you could do something like that, like this. So not assuming that you know hex colors by heart, but what you can do if you want to customize your plots a little bit, or if you want to customize the colors according to the colors that your company is using for presentations, then you can just go to hex color picker, and then you can pick a color that you want, and then you can see here also that the code is changing when I'm dragging around this little marker here. Yeah, so that's good to know that you can play around with that. Now we're going to continue to customize this plot a little further. So we're going to do plt.title to create a title for the plot. So I'll say top 5 YouTube channels by subscribers. Can run that, see what happens. We get this here, very nice. We can do plt x label, set it to channels. Now we have an x label, so the x label is here. We can do copy paste this and then just change this letter to y, and then we can have a y label as well, which should be subscribers in 100 million, right? Because we have 1E8, which means that we have this followed by 8 zeros. All right, and then the last thing that we need to do here for customization, which you might have noticed already, is that the X ticks here, that's what they're called ticks. So you have X ticks and you have Y ticks here, and they well, it looks really, really ugly, and you wouldn't be able to show this in a professional presentation. So we need to solve this problem, and what we do to solve this problem is that we say just plt.xticks, and then we're going to need to pass ticks here, and you can do range 5 here because we have 5 bars, and then we're going to say rotation is equal to 45. And if we run that now, you can see what happens. You can see, all right, we're rotating the X ticks, which is good. However, nursery rhymes here looks like it's on the side. And we can change that by passing HA, which stands for horizontal alignment, and we say right. So now they've been horizontally aligned on the right side of the text here. So it's in the middle here, the last letter is in the middle, which makes it look a lot more pleasing to the eye. Then also you can see this output here, which is pretty long and ugly, pretty annoying. Then to get rid of this, we want to do plt.show. So now we're only working with the figure here. So this is the easiest way to plot with a plt figure. Okay, now I'm going to show you the most versatile way to plot. And it looks like this. The most versatile way to plot, is with, I call it the fig-ax syntax, but you can also call it the subplots syntax. So the reason why this is the most versatile way to plot is because when you're gonna start customizing plots, then you're gonna have to revert to this way of plotting. The downside of this way is that it's a little bit more complex, it's a little bit more verbose, it requires more lines of code, but I think it's the best thing is just to focus on learning this way of plotting and then just stick to it. And the reason why I want to show you this way also is because when you're using Matplotlib to create visualization and you might be using ChatGPT to help you out, you're gonna have to specify to ChatGPT that you're using this way of plotting or that you're using this way of plotting, because otherwise ChatGPT is gonna mix up these two different ways of plotting, and that's going to create some problems for you because the method names that we use in this way of plotting is different from the method names that we use with the plt object. So let's get started by saying fig, ax here, and then we'll say plt.subplots. So subplots allows you to create several plots within one figure, but then of course you can also use it to create one plot in one figure, which is what we're going to do right now. So instead of say plt.bar, we're going to say axbar, and we're going to say top 5 YouTuber is the name, and then we're going to say top 5 subscribers, and color could be the same, so I'm just gonna copy paste it. And then we're gonna say ax.set title, and so here we can see also I'm gonna have to say here set title, for example, and here we're just gonna say title, and then we're gonna do set x label, and we're gonna do channels. Also gonna set the y label to be subscribers. I'm gonna do also here in 100 million, and then here also now for the let me just run that now so you can see what we have. Okay, we got this, still this ugly little thing going on here for the ticks. When we're changing the ticks, we're gonna have gonna need some more code to fix this. So first we're gonna say ax set x ticks, and then we'll just pass range 5 here, and then we're gonna have to say ax.set x tick labels, and we're gonna do labels So we're going to specify which labels, and the labels are going to be this, YouTubers. Those are the labels, specify them, and then we're also going to say rotation is equal to 45. 45 means, by the way, if you haven't noticed or figured it out, 45 degrees here. So if I'm doing 90 degrees, I'm getting this. Okay, so back to 45 degrees, and then also we're gonna want to change the alignment here. So HA for horizontal alignment, setting it to right. I'm gonna run that. And now we have the same plot here as we have here, except that we forgot to do the plt.show. Okay, so this one is now the same as this. And the only difference is that, well, this requires a little bit more code. All right, so now I'm going to continue to show you how to make more than one plot inside of a figure. So we're going to have to continue with this one, this thing here, but I'm going to start first with a 1 times 2 plot, meaning 1 row and 2 columns. So we're going to have 2 plots next to each other here. So 1 row, 2 columns. Looks like that. We can also set the fig size here, for example. Let's do that. Fig size should be equal to, let's go 12.6. And yeah, let's run that first. So if I run this now with a subplot here, you can see I'm getting 2 plots inside of one figure. And the thing here is that now axe here object, I have 2 of these axe objects. So I can say here, for example, axe 0, and then I can do set title by channel, right? So then it pops up here. If I change it to 1, it's going to be on this one. So axe bracket 0, axe bracket 1 is basically just indexing which plot inside of the figure I'm going to work with. Another way, instead of indexing, that you can do is that you can create tuples here. So you could go for, like, you can create like ax1, ax2 here, and then you can use them here like that. Oops. Okay, so either if you want to do this, you can do that. I personally prefer doing it this way, so that's what I'm gonna stick to. And I also forgot that we're gonna have to create some more slices like we did here. I'm gonna create one for video views and one for uploads. I'm gonna call this views, and I'm gonna call this uploads. Okay, so now I'm just creating data frames here that we can use to create 2 more plots that looks slightly different. Okay, so we're gonna start off by using the fig object actually. So you can use the fig object here, so you say subtitle, sorry, and then we can call this YouTube channel data visualization. Okay, so if I run that here, this is the fig object. So the fig object is the entire figure. So we can give a title to the entire figure and then have smaller titles for the axe objects here. So we can also, of course, change the font size. Font size is also a parameter which exists in all other methods where you're working with text on the plots somehow. So in the xtics, y label, x label, all of these things, you can play around with font size. So maybe we'll do a 24 here to increase it a little bit. Boom, that looks really nice. Then we're gonna start off with the first bar plot. So it's going to be very similar here. we're gonna say x0 now though. That's very important that we remember to do that. And then we're just gonna go for the bar. We're gonna say top 5 views, and we're gonna do the YouTuber here. Then we're gonna do some top 5 views, and we're gonna do video views. Then we're gonna do a nice color. That, just copy and pasting. You can pick whichever color you prefer. We're gonna move here, and then we're gonna set a title. Title's gonna be views by channel, and we're gonna run that. So here we have 1 exponent 11, meaning that when we say x0, we're gonna set a y label, and we're gonna say views in 100 billions. And then we're gonna set the x ticks here. So just range 5, and the reason I'm doing range 5 is because I have 5 bars here. It has to be the same, now the range has to map with the number of bars that you have in your plot. That's the point of it. So then x tick labels, not x ticks labels. Then we're gonna say here labels, and then we're gonna do top 5 views of YouTuber. Then we're gonna do the rotation equal 45, and the horizontal alignment to the right. Let's run that and see what we have. Okay, this looks good. So let's do the same thing now for uploads. I'm gonna change the color code a little bit. And then we're gonna want to change the data frame to here. Change these 3 uploads. Like that. This one is to change the uploads as well. And then we can try to run that, see what we have. Ooh, okay, now I made a mistake here. So this is good that I made this mistake, because now you can see what happens. So I forgot to change these here. I forgot to change it to index 1, which means that I'm overwriting this plot. So I'm gonna go in here and fix it to 1. All right. Now it looks good. And then we might also want to do plt show here. Now it looks like this. When you're working with the subplots and you're creating several plots, it's often quite nice to use this method instead of plt.show. So you do plt title layout, which formats it in a more visually pleasing way, I would say. Okay, now we've done 1 times 2 subplots, and now we're going to move on to do 2 times 2 subplots. And the first 2 subplots that we're going to do is just recreating these 2, and then we're going to do a histogram, and we're going to do a scatter plot. So I've been focusing a lot on bar plots, and there's a reason for that, because in a professional setting, bar plots going to take you really, really far. And just learn to become comfortable making really nice bar plots, and you should be fine. However, there are limitations to bar plots as well. So let's have a look at some other important plots like scatter plot and the histogram. So now when we're typing fig x here, we're gonna do 2, 2, and we're gonna have a fig size. So this is 2 by 2, 2 rows, 2 columns, and then the fig size slightly larger and slightly more square-like. Let's go for a super title. Okay, so here you can see now we have 4 plots here, and when we're doing 4 plots, I'm gonna copy paste this one first, so you'll see if I copy paste like this, doesn't work, and that's because now when we have rows and columns, we have to specify both of these dimensions, so 0 is not enough here. We're gonna have to go in for the top left corner and say 0, 0. So that's first row, first column, so top left corner. And now we have the visualization here. And same thing goes for this one. I'm just gonna go copy paste it all because I'm lazy. Here we're gonna say 0, 1, so row 0, column 1. Boom, here we have them. Looking good. Now for the next 2 plots here, I'm going to start with a scatter plot. Also very straightforward now when we're changing to a scatter plot. Basically, only thing that needs changing here is the method name here, scatter, and then we're gonna wanna specify x is equal to, and let's just go for the entire data frame now. So we'll say video views, and we're interested in seeing if there is a relationship between YouTube channels video views and the number of subscribers, perhaps. Okay, and then we can go ahead and do another color here. Feel free to pick whatever you like. I'm gonna go for this green color here. And then also you can specify the S here to be 10, for example. So S is the size of the scatters, and those are like the dots on the scatter plot. So I can just maybe run that and see what we have. So here's the scatter plot, looks good. So we're just gonna set a title, which gonna be views versus subscriber. Very nice. And we're also gonna do x11 set x label views, and the y label should be subscribers, like that. Okay, looking good, looking good. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a copy paster, and we're gonna do a histogram, and we're gonna delete this, and then we're gonna change. Oh, look at me, I am such a sloppy person. Now it looks good. Here we are, view subscribers. Let's do this like that. The histogram method is called hist. We're gonna pass video views. We can just run that now. So now it looks like this. We can change the bins to 100, so then we're getting something that resembles a bell curve a little bit more. And then we can go in here. We can also do color. I'm gonna select a pink color for this. Here we're gonna say FF8787, and we're also gonna play around with this thing here, edge color, and set it equal to black. And what it does is that it gives me these edges around the bins. And then of course I'm gonna have to change this to video views distribution. X label is gonna be views still, and this one's gonna change to frequency. Okay, now the only thing that's bothering us is that the ticks here are hiding behind these plots. To circumvent this problem, we're just gonna say tight layout, and now it looks very nice. Might want to also increase the font size here. You might also want to create like increase font size here, so I haven't done that here just to save some time. But if you're building a presentation to show in a professional setting, it's very important that you increase the size on the labels here and on the ticks, so it's readable for everyone in the room. You don't want people to sort of have to guess what the bars mean or something like that. Very important for presentations. Okay, so now we understand the fig ax syntax better. We know how to create one or several plots within the fig object, and we know how to do the most important customization operations. We've also covered the most important plots for business, the bar plot, the scatter plot, and the histogram, which means that we only have one essential plot left for business to cover here, which is the line plot. And in this section, I'm also going to show you a clever way of generating plots with a loop when we don't know how many columns we want to plot. So this technique is great when you want to get an overview of your data quickly, and I recommend saving this code as a user-defined function to use whenever you need. So clever looping formula to plot quickly. Yes. And I could also recommend you to try to save this as a user-defined function. Okay, gonna use a new dataset now here, so you can find the CSV file in the description. I'm also setting index column to date. I'm also gonna say parse date here, and then in the end I'm also dropping one column. That's just to have an uneven number of columns in the loop here. Okay, so run that. Yes, and it's also important that you put the index call to date and you parse the dates, because we're gonna want to have a time series data frame here, and those two steps are necessary to be able to work with time series data properly. Okay, so for this little loop, we're gonna import the math library. I'm gonna say columns here. Okay, so we have data here on precipitation, snow, average snow, and then we have snow depth here for different Nordic countries, except Denmark, because they don't have any snow. And then we're gonna say here, so weather columns, and now we're gonna calculate the number of rows we need for our subplot. And that's just gonna be rows is equal to math.ceil, so ceiling, and then we're gonna do len cols divided by 3. Yeah, I can just copy paste this here. So you'll see that I get 5 here. If I'm not doing with the ceiling, I'm getting 4.6. So what the ceiling does is that it takes a floating point number and brings it up to the closest integer. And it always rounds up, and that's why it's called ceiling. Okay, so now it's 5. So this means that I'm gonna have 5 rows and 3 columns. And then I'm gonna create the subplots, and let's do that. Fig ax equal to, here I'm actually gonna name it axs with an S for a good reason, which you'll see later. Subplots, and then rows, and then 3 columns. I'm gonna have fig size set to 20, 5 multiplied by rows. And now I am going to iterate all of the columns and plot them. So I'm gonna say for col, ax in zip cols axis dot flat. Okay, so what this does, it's a loop where I'm zipping together the column names with the axis, and axis being the different plots that I'm gonna have in my figure here. So col, and then I'm doing all of the axes, and I'm doing dot flat, so I'm flattening them, right? So I don't have to write a nested loop. And then we're gonna say ax.plot, and we're gonna plot, so the weather.index and ax.plot, if I'm just saying plot, I'm gonna get a line plot. And line plots are plots that we want to use when we have a time variable on the x-axis. So we're saying weather index, comma, and then we're gonna say weather of the column that we're looping. And then we're gonna say x.set, and this is like a little lazy method here, so we can say x label is equal to time, and y label is equal to quantity, and the title is equal to column. Alright, so let me plt.show here and then run it. So this is cool, right? That we can just loop over columns in a data frame with similar data and just plot it super quickly, very powerful. But if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see this little thing here, which is quite annoying, right? And this is where the smart little loop comes into play that we're gonna build. So we're gonna build a loop to get rid of the empty ax object. So to do that, we are gonna want to iterate the axes from behind. So we're gonna iterate them backwards and turn off subplots that don't contain any data. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we're gonna say for I in axis dot flat, so we're flattening it again, which we did up here, so I've just flattened. And then to do it backwards, we're gonna say colon minus 1. Oh, minus 1. So we're selecting all the axes, and the step here is minus 1, which means that we're gonna iterate from the last to the first. And then we are gonna write this, so rows multiplied by 3 minus len of cols. All right, let's just do that first and I'll get into explaining it later. So set axis off, and then let's run it. Ta-da! And so now this loop here is going to work. It's going to turn off subplots that don't contain data regardless of how many columns we're iterating over. It's still gonna turn off the axis of the empty ones. So let's have a look at what this is doing here. So it says 15, right? So this is rows times 3, okay? And then we have the length of columns here, which is 14. So 15 minus 14 is 1. So what this expression is doing is that it's telling us how many axes we're gonna turn off. All right, so this is a super cool loop that you can just save into a user-defined function. It's worth having it around when you're doing like an exploratory data analysis. You have a bunch of columns, you just want to loop over them and then study the data a little bit and see if you can find any insights or something like that. This is very helpful. Alright, we're gonna move on to a new dataset, which is a dataset of critical mineral demand. So this is a dataset that I found on Goldman Sachs website. So they have mapped out the mineral demand for these important metals, and then they've made a projection for how much of these metals we're gonna need in the future. So we're gonna create a, I'm gonna write that also here. We're gonna do a stacked bar chart. Boom. And now we're gonna go into some proper customization here. So first I just want to extract the columns as series. So I'm gonna just do years is equal to critical year. I'm gonna do that for every column. Oops. And cobalt, lithium, nickel. Say nickel. Alright, let me just create some new colors here. We're gonna have it all in shades of blue. When we're doing these stacked bar charts, if we're working with bars that are gonna be, the stacked bars are gonna be in the same category, so now the category is minerals, it's good if the bar, if these different categories are in the same color. You can have different shades to sort of separate them to show that they're different minerals, but keep them in the same color. It's going to be a lot more intuitive for the audience to understand if you do that. So allow me to type this out first. Feel free to copy. Right. Then we're gonna do figax here, plt.subplots, and we're gonna have a fig size of, let's say 10.6 here, and now we're gonna do stacked bar chart. So it's gonna look like this. Gonna say ax.bar, and we're gonna start with the years, and then cobalt, and then we're gonna give it a label. We're gonna call it cobalt, and we're gonna do color, and then I'm just gonna index one of the colors here, and then I'm gonna say edge color equal to white. Then I'm gonna run that just to show you what we end up with. So just by doing this, we're ending up with a bar chart. So next step here to stack on top of this is that we're just gonna do a new bar chart, or use ax.bar again. We're gonna say years like we did last time, and now we're gonna add the lithium here on top of it. We're gonna give it a label soon, but first we're gonna do something called bottom here. So in the bottom, what do we have there? Well, we have cobalt, yes, and then we're gonna say label is equal to lithium, very good, and we're gonna say color equal to this. I'm gonna do the first one, and then let's keep an edge color here as well. Okay, let's execute it and see what we get. Alright, so we can see now here we have the cobalt, and here we have the lithium stacked on top of it. So now to do the next one, to do nickel, we're just gonna continue to do this. It's gonna be very similar. So nickel, and then here for bottom, now we're gonna have to do a little list comprehension. So I'm gonna say I plus j for ij in, and then I'm gonna zip together the cobalt and the lithium. And after that list comprehension, I'm gonna need a label, set that to nickel, and yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and copy paste here, and then the only thing that needs changing here is this one. I'm gonna go for the 0th one, and then I'm just gonna run that. Okay, so if you didn't see here, in the end the only thing I'm adding here is edge color white, and that's the last thing on this line here. Let me execute. Got an error. Oops, I forgot the hashtag here. So here we can see that we're continuing to stack. Now we're just gonna stack the last one here, which is gonna be rare earth minerals. And we're gonna do the same thing. One bar, we're gonna have the years, and we're gonna do rare earths. We're gonna do bottom, and here now we're gonna do a list comprehension again. We're gonna have to say I plus j plus k for I, j, k in, and then we're zipping the 3 of them now. So order here is also important, of course. We're gonna do cobalt, we're gonna do lithium, and then we're gonna add on nickel. Okay, then allow me to just do this, and then I'll say label equals rare earths, and then colors equal to blue shades, 3rd index position, and then we're gonna do edge color white also. Alrighty, that's about it for creating the stacked bar chart. Then of course we're gonna want to do some customization, so we're gonna customize the plot, and we're gonna go x.set title global demand for critical minerals and rare earth elements 2020 to 2030. Alright, so that looks good. Let's do X label and also Y label. X label is gonna be year, and the Y label is gonna be the demand, and this demand is in kilotons. And then I'm gonna run this. So what's missing now is a legend that helps a viewer to understand which metals these are. So a legend is created like this. We just say ax.legend, and yeah, we can just run it like that. So now you can see here an annoying thing, which is that cobalt, which is in the bottom here, is now in the top here, and rare earths is on the top, but it's on the bottom here. So it's been reversed. So we can change that by saying reverse equals true. It's always worth going the extra mile to make your plots more intuitive. There are enough of useless plots in the world. Okay, so now that looks nice. We're gonna also do an adjustment here. We're gonna say bbox to anchor equal to 1 1. So if when I do that, I'm putting the legend outside of the plot. One other nice thing that we could add here is to do plt.figure text, and we could do something like this. Source Goldman Sachs research, font size equals 10, and the color should be gray. Nice, huh? Okay, so now I'm gonna continue to further customize and enhance this plot right here. And what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create opaque bars to highlight the projection. So these years here, those are just projections, right? I don't actually have the data for this. So to do that, we're gonna need this, but we're gonna do something here. We're gonna say bars is equal to an empty list, okay? And then I'm gonna mark all of these. I'm gonna say bars dot append, and then I'm gonna close the parenthesis on all 4 of them. This parenthesis needs to go here. Okay, so if I just run that, it looks the same as before. And now I want to loop bars and change opacity. Okay, so that's just going to be 4 bar group in bars, and then I'm going to loop. So a bar group is going to be an entire bar like this, and then we have tiny bars inside of the bar group. So that's why we're going to have to write a nested loop here. So for bar in bar group, right? So I'll be iterating this bar on the outer loop, and then in the inner loop I'm going to go through this one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for the entire iteration. So then I'm going to say if bar.get x is greater than 2023, then I'm gonna say bar.set alpha, and the alpha value is the opacity, so it's a value between 0 and 1, 1 being no opacity whatsoever, and then 0 is going to be white basically. So I'm going to put 0.5 here, and then just execute it, and we can see that now I have opaque bars here. You might also want to do the reverse. If you want to do the reversed here, you could do that as well. So we can have, maybe depending on what it is that you want to highlight. You want to highlight the projection or the previous years. So you can do whatever here. So I'm just going to go ahead back and do it like that. Then also just copy paste this here, and we're gonna end up with the nice customization as well. Okay, so that's a stacked bar chart. Those are very powerful and really good to use in different types of business settings. So now we're gonna move on from the stacked bar chart to the grouped bar chart. Grouped bar chart like that. Ta-ta! And now we're gonna use a new dataset. Find it in the description below, and then you can have a look at it. df1 like this. So this is sales data, quarterly sales data from a real company, and we have the cost, and then we have their total margin, right? So the cost plus total margin is the revenue here, so the sales. All right, first thing that we're gonna do is that we're gonna create a list for the quarters, and I'm just gonna call them Q1 like this. 2021, that's the first. That, and then again Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Copy pasting it again, and then we're just gonna change this to 2, and I think that's gonna be all we need, right? So running that, this is because I want to use them for tickers later on. And now we're also gonna do a rather nice thing here. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, you'll have to watch and see, but we're importing the thing we need right now. So import matplotlib.ticker string method formatter, and we're gonna start off with the figax syntax, the subplots. So we're gonna say figax plt.subplots, and then we're gonna say fig size is equal to 10.6, and now I'm gonna create a variable called bar width, which I'm gonna set to 0.35, and then I'm gonna use numpy and say np arrange len df1.index. Okay, now to create the grouped bar chart, we're gonna do similar thing to what we did with the stacked one. So we're gonna create 2 bars in the same ax object. So we're gonna say x minus bar width divided by 2. Okay, and then we're gonna do df1. We're gonna have the cost first because that makes sense, and then we're gonna say width is equal to bar width label is equal to cost, and the color we'll be using is from the blue shades list that we created before. I'm gonna take the third color here, and then when we're creating the next one here, we're gonna say almost the same thing, but we're instead gonna say x plus bar width divided by 2, and then this is gonna be the same, but we're just gonna need to change these 2 things here into total margin. All right, that looks nice. Now we can run it. Matplotlib I misspelled arrange as well. Okay, so here we go. Of course I need to change this color here to a lighter blue, so now it looks a lot nicer. Can still, so yeah, you can see here we have the bars here looking really nice. We have some nice separation between the bars to sort of denote that these two bars are in the same category, and the category here is a quarter. Now we're gonna want to make some nice customizations to this plot. The first thing I want to do is, of course, to just set the title and these type of things here. So we're going to set the title. I'm going to call it total sales quarter by quarter by quarter. Font size of 24. Set X label quarters, and then the Y label should be sales in euros. And then we're gonna do x.set xticks, and I can just pass the x here, which I created, and then I want to set the x tick labels, and labels is going to be equal to the quarters, which I generated up here, and I can run it and we'll see what we have. Okay, this is what I'm getting here. You might want to rotate these. I think it looks pretty good right now actually, so I'm actually gonna keep them. I want to do one nice thing here though. I'm gonna change the formatting here to look really good. So to have this scientific notation all the time is quite disturbing for some people, especially in business. You know, sometimes business people don't know scientific notation, so we will want to change it so that like normal people can understand what it is. Even if people understand what it is, it's not super intuitive. We might just want to see the numbers. So we're gonna change that. We're gonna do x.tick label format, and we're gonna say style is equal to plain, and we're gonna specify on which axis, the y axis. Let me run that. Okay, so now we've suppressed the scientific notation, and in some cases that's fine. That's what we want to do. Suppress notation, and then we're going to say x y axis dot set major formatter. Now we're gonna use string method formatter, and here we can pass a string that's gonna look like this: x colon comma dot 0 f for float there. Now we're gonna run it. Now you can see that we get these nice comma signs here in between. Right, so that looks very, very nice. Now it's very clear that we're talking millions here. It's very intuitive that we're talking about millions. And that's where we want to be with visualizations. They should be intuitive. So we might add a legend here also to see that this is the darker blue is costs and the lighter one is the margin. And then also just do a plt.show here in the end. Boom. That looks really beautiful. Okay, so last up here, I'm just gonna do a plot where I am throwing in all the customization things that I haven't managed to fit in so far in this code along. So I'm just gonna go ahead and call it advanced customization, like that. Okay, so now we're gonna do a data frame. We're gonna use the data frame that we used earlier. So weather data frame. You can if you just fast forwarded to this part of the code along, you can find the weather data frame in the description below, and just paste it in, and then you can follow along from here also. We're gonna look at snow depths in Sweden and in Norway, and then in Finland as well. And I'm also going to resample the data here, resampling the data. So before, in the weather here, I have time series data that's on a daily basis, and what I'm doing here is that I'm resampling it so that every timestamp is on a monthly basis instead, and then I'm just taking the average snow depth per month. And the reason why we want to resample the data when we're creating line charts, which we'll be doing now, is to reduce the noise. So if we have very short time distances between timestamps in our time series data frame, the lines are gonna look very noisy. So we can smoothen them out by resampling the data frame. Okay, so we have snow here, and now we're gonna do a fig ax kind of thing and some subplots. Fig size is equal to 10.6, and then I'm gonna do this is plotting the lines here. So we're just gonna say ax.plot, and we're gonna say snow.index, and then snow depth for depth Sweden here. I'm just gonna put the label equal to Sweden, and then I'm gonna copy paste this 3 times. I'm gonna change this part here to Norway, whoops, and then this part to Finland. So Norway, Finland, and then gonna do some basic customize the basics. So the basics include, of course, which we're always doing, setting a title, and we're gonna set an X label and a Y label. Y label is gonna be snow depth in centimeters. Okay, so if I run that here, we can see the seasonality of average snow depth by month in Sweden, Norway, and Finland. So you can see that Finland almost always has more snow than Sweden and Norway. Okay, so now some nice customization things to do here is gonna be to add something, an arrow to a part of the graph that we want to highlight. So I'm gonna write some code to find the maximum snow depth value and its corresponding date, and then I'm gonna annotate an arrow with some text that denotes, okay, this is the peak snow depth value in this graph. So to do that, first thing we need to do is find max snow depth and corresponding date. And the reason why I want to find the max snow depth and also the corresponding date is because when we're working with these plots, we're working with a grid. So we need to find both the x and the y coordinates in order to annotate an arrow to this graph. So this is gonna require some pandas code. So just the peak value. It's gonna be very simple. We're gonna do snow depth. Whoops. Snow depth like this, and it's gonna be in Finland because we can tell it's in Finland. We're just gonna say max. Then we're also gonna have the peak date here. So we're gonna say snow and then locate. Then I'm going to just copy paste this and set it equal to the peak value. And then what I want is the index. It's gonna look like that. And then add an arrow is the last step here. Add an arrow annotation at the peak. So what I want to do here is that I'm saying annotate peak snow in Finland of roughly 6 meters deep. Steep. XY peak date and peak value here. So XY, those are the coordinates. And then we're also gonna say XY text equal to peak date plus PD date offset, which is a function that we use when we're working with time series data. So peak date plus date offset 10 days, and then I'm also gonna say comma here peak value plus 15. And the reason why I'm saying date offset and plus 15 here is because I don't want the text to be in the same spot as the arrow. I want it to be a little bit on the side of it. So I'm gonna write on the next line here. It's a lot easier to see. And the next thing we need to do is we're gonna say arrow props. And here we're gonna do a dictionary. I'm gonna say arrow style is equal to this. This can be 1.5. And then we'll set a font size also, color, and let's do horizontal alignment to the right. Okay, so let's try that out now. And so here we get a little arrow and some green text. So you can make it fatter if you want, but I think 1.5 here was kind of good. Yes, another thing also which I didn't show you is that we can here you can set a marker like O, for example, and if we're doing that, then each timestamp will be denoted by these little dots. In the case of this visualization, I think it would be very annoying to have all of these dots here all the time. And you don't have to have dots either all the time. You can have, if you put an S here, you're gonna have squares. If you put this little hat or the accent circonflexe, you'll get triangles like that. So it's good to know that you can use these markers. Okay, let's also do some horizontal lines in the graph for average snow depth. So we can say ax h line. So h line, the h there stands for horizontal line, and you can of course change the h line to v line and you get a vertical line. In this case it doesn't make sense really to have a, well, it could make sense actually, but we're just going to stick to the h lines here. They work the same way. So let's get the average Swedish snow depth, and the color should preferably be the same here, so blue. And you can also specify line style here, so this will be a dashed line style, and then we could also have a label average Swedish snow depth, something like this. If I run it, yeah, of course, I forgot to create the average Swedish snow depth. So let's do that first. Let's go average Swedish snow depth, snow depth Sweden mean. Alright, and I'm gonna copy paste it to do it for all of them. So let's do for Norway and for Finland as well. So now it should work. You can see here I'm getting a vertical line here, and I can also say alpha here to make it more opaque, so 0.3 if I don't want it to like completely take over the graph here. I'll turn it into a more opaque color. So now I'm just gonna change the color for here. I'm gonna do orange for Norway, and I'm gonna do Finland. Finland's gonna be green. Ta-da! That looks very nice. And then also what I want to do perhaps here, if you can see, I don't have a legend, or I have a legend, but maybe I want to add these into a legend, and I'll have to specify just legend like that, and now you'll see they all pop up here. Then could finish off with a ptl.show. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I immensely appreciate your feedback on these tutorials. Please leave a comment in the description. Tell me what you liked about it, what you didn't like, what you would like to see in the future, and so on. I read and try to answer all comments, and we'll post more videos shortly.